I'm sorry to those of you that actually prefer to keep things in box. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be reviewing Rogue from the Uncanny X-Men. Now this is obviously the retro pack, so the card back, clam plastic front. What are these called? I don't know. Cardbacks. With these figures, we always do an overview of everything that's in the box. Of course, we look at the packaging, then we look at detail, articulation, and posing. Let's get into it. So this is all a new line for me. I mostly have done NECA, as the channel is kind of loaded down with NECA products. But looking at the Hasbro stuff is always interesting. They do all of these additional languages on the packages and stuff. Just the handling of packaging alone is really unique. Looking at the different creators, you know, the different brands and stuff. So NECA does a really good job of calling out all of the artists and the sculptors and the painters and the packaging creators and stuff. And unfortunately, with all of this, you don't get it. Hasbro just doesn't do it, which I would love to see. I mean, as much stuff is on the packaging here and a lot of text, you know, they cover a lot of languages, which is always great, but they really don't do much. Actually, they don't do anything at all to call out the creators, the sculptors, the painters, designers for the packaging and everything. So I would love to see that change, or at least a card. I mean, there's this paper in here, but it's usually about, you know, like some kind of safety thing or something. We don't need safety. As hard as this is for me to do, let's open the packaging here. Is there a safe way to do this? Oh, God, that hurts. That hurts a little bit. Now, I actually have a personal goal of taking these kind of VHS boxes and designing my own, hopefully, and then finding a local printer. And then, I mean, because I do art as well. So I would like to find a way to put her into that box, because it's, you know, we really missed out on getting her in that VHS collection. I wish that there was a better way to do this. And maybe there is, and I just don't know it, besides like cutting it and stuff. And, you know, but if you have to cut it, where's the fun in cutting your boxes open? I mean, I at least like these because they don't have, you know, they're plastic free, which is really nice. You don't get to see the product, which is the downside. But, you know, I'm sorry to those of you that actually prefer to keep things in box, because this is the kind you would definitely want to do that with. All right, so in the box we have the typical little sheet from Hasbro that just talks about safety or something, and small parts and warnings and, you know, whatever. But most of us are what, like 30 and up? These aren't for kids. What kid is collecting this? All right, so let's check out the details. Obviously with the plastic stuff, it's just simple. There's nothing crazy going on. There's no ties or anything that hold these things into the plastic, which makes life much easier. Downside to stuff like this versus, you know, looking at NECA and some other brands is you generally don't get a lot of accessories. Now she comes with a couple extra hands. That's it. The figures that actually come with like attachable powers are really cool, but it's kind of hit or miss when you find that, like the VHS stuff. So Jubilee, Storm, they have attachable power, you know, like add-ons, and then Cyclops doesn't. I mean, that just seems like one you gotta have. Now, obviously with Rogue, you're not gonna get a whole lot of opportunities to see what that would even look like. So let's go ahead and take her out of this plastic. She's just got a piece of tape on her hands, that's it. So it's actually a pretty tight fit in that plastic compared to some of the other brands. And then, of course, just the piece of tape. That's it. Easy. So looking at Rogue in all of her details, now the downside immediately is that, you know, the paint and everything looks good and it's very animated look, but then you get this stamp on the back, the part numbers or whatever. So it's like, we don't want that. Is there a way to get that off? Let me know if there's an easy way to remove that without damaging the finish on the product itself. But look at the details. So this is actually a great piece. It's got that 90s cartoon vibe for sure. The big hair. I mean, there's a couple different iterations of Rogue for the Marvel figures, but you gotta go with the large hair. It's just part of her personality. I don't know. That's probably just because it's a nostalgia thing or whatever. We're old and we just like what we like. So the other hands, so her gloved hand with holding her other glove, obviously, because this one is ungloved. So kind of a cool just combo that obviously is meant to be used together. So overview is pretty simple on this figure. There's not a whole lot to look at. Obviously we're looking pretty much that we did it. Overview's done. So let's look into the details of this figure. So with this figure, obviously there's not going to be a whole lot of like different paint work. It's just going to be a very cartoon finish, and we see that very obviously. Everything's just like it's just a one tone, except for on the face you kind of get this like blush with the cheeks. So detailed as far as the paint around the face is nice. I mean, all of the eyes, those are really crisp. The mouth, the nose, the sculpting I think is fantastic on this figure. Some of them, you know, especially the older stuff, they looked super awkward and goofy, but now we are able to get these kind of sculpts as we see with like NECA and some of the other Marvel stuff where they're based on actors. So you get this realism even with something that is, you know, based off of essentially nobody. This is just a made up face, but this is nice. Now, I don't like that the jacket has this cutout and you can see through it, because obviously it's supposed to be a full jacket. So that's kind of a downside. And then what could you do to like fix that? The jacket doesn't move. I guess it would just be best to paint that part of the body, right? I mean, it's not like she has replaceable arms that don't have the jacket. The jacket doesn't really move. So that's kind of a downside. But as far as sculpting, details of the hair, I mean, that is epic hair. That is fantastic. Obviously it's cut into two pieces here between the white and the brown. The jacket itself is cut into two different pieces. So you have the on the body, and then you have it going down the arms here, the patchwork, the glove work. So you can see all the muscles and things going on in the body. For something that is a flat color, they're not relying on paint, like a washed finish, to give anything more detail. It's all just kind of there in the sculpting work, which again is why I think in the packaging it's just respectful to give the call out to those that are actually putting in this work to create these products. One thing I'm not a fan of so far is the way that the extra pieces all just kind of fall and move around and you can see through. So I don't like the shoulders. I don't like that the glove pieces are moving, which I mean, I understand that you need to be able to change the hands, but I don't know, maybe now that I'm thinking about it, obviously if you're gonna remove the glove altogether, she shouldn't have this yellow band, but yeah, I mean, it only works on one side. So, I don't know, I guess it's okay, I just gotta get over it. They have a lot more obvious joints than figures like NECA. This one across the top of the leg, it's nice to have that extra piece of articulation, but I really am not a fan of it. I'd rather just get rid of it, because if you can't hide this seam and this rotation option, then I don't need it. It just kind of makes it look weird, and it's the same thing here in the hips. Like this, I don't want to see these ball joint things like sticking out of the body. I also don't know why, but this green piece is moving up and down the leg. Why isn't that just kind of sculpted in? So let's check out the other hands. Let's make sure we get those figured out. So that's it. It's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot to work with on the alternative hands, but I mean, that's pretty neat. So finishing up here on the details of the figure, there's not a whole lot left to look at. So let's just get into articulation. So with Rogue, the head, I mean, obviously this hair is big and it's gonna be a real problem trying to get the head to move. So yeah, not a whole lot as far as rotating the head goes. I mean, you could force some stuff to go around, but I mean, I guess as far as looking left and right, this is as much as anybody with a normal spine would do. But the up and down, let's see, this new format in the camera is really disorienting. She can look down a little bit. She cannot look up. That's it. She is done. So with a classic flying figure, she's never going to be able to look up while she's flying. So there's a little bit of play in the tilt. So the arms, let's see, they open all the way out to the sides, which is great, and spinning. Then you have rotation here at the elbow. And then the elbow itself is just a single joint, which of course a figure this small, this thin, you're not gonna be able to get any double elbows in there. The wrist has articulation. It's got a joint there, but maybe we gotta move this band. So she's got 90-degree turns on the wrist, which is nice. Obviously full rotation of the wrist. The rotation for the torso is going to be where it's very obviously cut there into two different pieces. There's nothing specifically around the waist area, which is fine. As long as you get something is always good to have. The legs, obviously, as we talked about earlier, they're going to have these kind of weird upper rotation areas. The legs, the splits, she cannot do full splits, just the hard plastic here sitting on the sides. As far as going forward, let's see, we got full forward, we've got partially backwards. So there's nothing around the knee that rotates, so it is all just in this upper area, but she does have double jointed knees, which is always a plus. That is the best way to treat the legs. Just give them those double joints, man. Then you got the ankles, which seem to be pretty simple, just straight down, not much up. And then that kind of weird rotating hinge point, which just helps with planting their feet when you have them in different poses so they can stand flat. But as far as articulation, there's not a whole lot with her. There's some limitations for sure. So that brings us into posing, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with this new layout. There we have it with the Rogue. I think a couple of extra hands would be really nice, even if they are gloved. She definitely needs a stand, and maybe that's a Marvel Hasbro thing, but I think with her, she needs one that obviously makes it look like she's flying, and I don't own that, so I will order one now. When it comes to detail, I think she's pretty cool. I mean, you're not gonna get a lot out of this. It's, you know, I mean, it is a comic book cartoon style figure, so I'll give her a 3 out of 5. I mean, it would be cool to have another head sculpt, but I don't expect that. But some extra hands that are actually usable would be really cool. When it comes to articulation, legs you can't do a lot, the arms do a little bit, the torso has a little bit of movement, but the head really just, you can't do anything. And if she's flying, you really want to have that head to, you know, tilt up or down, depending on the flying pose that you got. So with articulation, we'll give her a 3 out of 5. And when it comes down to posing, you're really limited because of the head, and you don't have many hand options. I mean, everything's a fist, which is a bummer. And then, in fact, of course, that I need a stand, so I'm not going to hold that against the figure that I need the stand. But I think it's going to be a key element to the way you would want her posed. With that considered, I'm going to give her a 3 out of 5, and I think that's a very fair, reasonable score. Overall, I mean, I think the figure, you know, is it worth the price? Yeah, definitely. This is not an expensive product, and if she's one of your favorites from the X-Men, this is a must. Otherwise, yeah, keep her in the box. Unless you're an out-of-box collector, then just tear it up, man. So there are the scores, the overall rating, and I would love to know what you think of this. Is this one that you have at home, or you plan on picking up? If you enjoyed this video, then definitely check out this one, because that, which is an older style, is a great review. We'll see you next time.